Yeah.
Me and you. I don't know what
So,
those guys
I don't know what was going on, but y'all didn't get the memo on Seersucker Day here. It is Wednesday, right?
All right.
Yeah. No, it's Thursday, so it's Seersucker Thursday, my bad. I only got till Labor Day to wear this thing, so I got to do it today. I'm going to start off by telling you, here's my talking points, and my staff gives me talking points, and they say, here's what you need to talk about, and usually I don't ever hit the talking points. So they're back in there in the back, and they just cringe because they never know what I'm going to say. Some of y'all know that. Some of you have heard, I don't always stick to the talking points. I want to hit the high points because as was just indicated, the reality is we should have had no problem getting that oilseed designation. Very clear in the statute. There's no ambiguity to it at all. And I don't want to inject politics into this deal, but quite frankly, I believe that was probably the motivation for not taking the action to help the cotton industry when it was a very simple fix to help at a time when it was most needed. So the Band-Aid fix, the cost share, that'll suffice, I guess, to help a little bit in the short term, but we need to be doing some things long term. And if it means, I was talking to Reese a little bit ago, do we need to go in and implement or enact legislation to clarify the legislation that's already there? Maybe that's what we need to do. But this is a delicate balancing act when we talk about the Farm Bill and why it's important to maintain the integrity of the Farm Bill, and that really means keeping it closed. How are we going to come up with a solution to address this, the PLC issue and the oilseed designation, if we don't open the Farm Bill? And if we open the Farm Bill, are we doing more harm than good? We've got to figure out how to do this. Can we do something as a standalone provision, possibly, maybe? Are we going to be able to craft something in appropriations that might address that? Maybe. That's going to come up here in this lame duck session. But what I think is more likely going to happen is we're going to see a continuing resolution. It's a presidential election year. Nobody wants to make big waves. Nobody wants to get out on a limb on anything in particular. So the idea will probably be to punt into the next Congress and into the next administration to get us through the calendar year and then take this up going forward. So I say that to say this. I don't want to get up here and make statements about what's definitively going to happen. We don't really know. But what we do know is this isn't working very well. It's not working across commodities, but it's particularly not working well for cotton. And the one thing that we could do, that we had the authority to do, that the Secretary had the clear authority to do, and we had 100 members of Congress ask him to do, he wouldn't do. So there we are. I'm at a little bit of an impasse there, and it's quite frustrating from my perspective. Particularly, in Arkansas, we had a 40% decline in cotton acres last year. Is that right, Jeff? Roughly 40%? Came back a little this year. We live in cotton country. Cotton's important to us. So I don't want to see. I can remember in 2007 as a farm broadcaster, and I had a little advertising agency, and we were out helping a company to market grain bags because cotton growers were growing corn. So I think it was 06, 07 when that phenomenon started happening, where you started seeing grain bags on the turn rows instead of modules. And I thought, well, maybe this is just a little flash in the pan. And a couple years later, you start seeing grain bins go up on cotton farms. And you start seeing grain bins go up next to cotton gins. For the cotton industry, that's problematic. And it's hard to get those cotton gins back once they shutter and cease operations, number one. Number two, I'm preaching to the choir here. You all know this. I think probably just letting you know that I'm aware of your issues. The ripple effects it has in our small town economies when gins aren't ginning. It's very important to note that, and I think that's lost argument on some of our folks in Washington who don't recognize the value proposition of the economic activity associated with gins and the cotton industry in a rural economy. So I'm going to make this a priority issue. It has been since I started. I can remember one of the first stops I made before I ever got into this thing was come down and talk to some cotton folks here at the Gin Show in Memphis. And there's a handful of you that were here. And as a matter of fact, I think we were at the Rendezvous is where we made that first contact with some of you. And so I'm still hooked, and we're doing everything we can to make sure that we're doing all we can to protect the cotton industry. I had a conversation with some folks earlier today. I stopped off at another ag stop, and I think we've missed an opportunity as an industry to develop a broader coalition of support regarding agriculture. And that is, agriculture is important to us from a national security perspective. And if as an industry we can't coalesce around that, I think we're going to continue to shoot at each other, and we're going to continue to implement policy that doesn't help, that in fact is harmful. And we need to start selling the public on the value of agriculture to our national security. The day we become a net food importer is the day we say goodbye to our national security. We're already, in a position with energy. We don't need to be in the position of energy-wise to be dealing with foreign countries that don't really care about us. We can take care of ourselves. Not only can we take care of ourselves, they can be a great revenue stream for us from a global marketing perspective. We can do those things, but we choose not to. Why? I don't know. But if we take that route on food and fiber, we are at the mercy of people who don't care for us. That argument is not lost on the general public. I saw a poll recently that suggested that they are supportive of the idea of supporting agriculture. In fact, 70+% of Americans agree that's important to us. But we haven't come forth with this argument that it's a national security imperative to help secure our agricultural resources, plain and simple. So there's several of you in the room that have been in the meeting when I have challenged ag professionals in every commodity group and every agency, every organization, that we need to coalesce around a single set of ideas. If those are 3 points or 5 points, whatever we can all agree on, that strengthens agriculture. Not about strengthening cotton per se, it's not about strengthening rice per se or soybeans, it's about strengthening agriculture. That makes it easier for us to write a farm bill that better serves you, because the general public then gets on our side. We have to win that battle, and if we don't, we're going to continue to see weak farm bills, and we're going to continue to see problems in the industry that we can't correct. So I'm going to ask all of you to think about that and think about what ideas you might be able to put forward to help us in that regard, because without the public support, we can't win these battles. And right now it feels like we're pushing the tide back with a broom. It's not an easy lift. It seems pretty simple, and we were very clear in the statute. But this is a big fight, and it shouldn't be, but it is. And so we're going to run into this again as we tee up the next farm bill. We're only 2 years away. I don't see anything. You've heard the economic conditions here. I wasn't here for the economic report, but I don't see anything that's probably going to change this course over the next 2 years. So we're probably going to be writing a farm bill under duress, for lack of a better term. And we have a tendency in Washington, I say we now because I'm in Washington. I used to, as a broadcaster, I used to say they. Now I say we. Wow. But the reality is that there is a tendency to overcorrect and overcompensate. So when markets are good and we write a farm bill, when the prices are good, invariably they're going to go down. They're going to go down quick, and we haven't put an adequate response in there to address that. Markets are down, we put something in there that's an overcorrection, they go back up and the taxpayers start screaming. We have to strike a balance that works for everybody, and it starts really, I think, in the court of public opinion and sort of revisiting this notion that agriculture is important to everybody. Y'all have seen the bumper stickers, if you eat, you're involved in agriculture. That's probably a good bumper sticker to remind folks that they're part of the equation. And this stuff just doesn't materialize on their shelves at Walmart or Kroger or wherever. So we're going to keep this fight up, but I'm going to tell you it won't be easy. I'm not trying to paint a picture that I can't deliver on. I've learned to manage expectations. In my previous life, I tried to under-promise and over-deliver, and that's generally a good business model to follow. And I have stuck with that as a rule. I don't want to make you think that things are possible that aren't. But what is possible and what is going to happen is I'm going to give you 110% of everything I have to make sure that you guys are represented fairly and adequately and that there's something there for you. I'm going to do everything I can to make that happen. So having said all that, you may have some issues on your mind, may have some questions or comments, and I'd be happy to entertain those now if that's okay with you.
Thank you, Congressman. We do have an opportunity in a few minutes to ask questions. Again, I want to use Chairman's prerogative and ask the first question. First, I do want to tell you that we hear what you're saying, and the National Cotton Council will accept our part in working with you and doing that public opinion fight and the sustainability message. And we've already started that. This group of men and women have given direction to the council, and we're working along those lines, and we're going to continue to work with you. Having said that, my first question is a little more detailed. As we look forward to the Farm Bill, what is your plan, or what do you see happening in the House Agriculture Committee? When will you start having hearings in Washington, hearings outside of Washington? What's the schedule? Where are we at in looking forward to the next Farm Bill?
That's a really good question. I will tell you this, under Chairman Conaway's leadership, those hearings have already started fairly aggressively. In fact, we've had folks complain about the volume of hearings that have taken place, but it's all part of a process that Chairman Conaway has in mind, and that I share, and most of us share that vision for a more efficient Farm Bill. And it's all about background. It's all about collecting information. It's about monitoring ongoing policies and programs and rules and so on, and keeping track of that on an ongoing basis so we can learn from that and apply it to the next one. So there's been an awful lot of hearings already. Probably one of the most aggressive schedules of any committee in this Congress has been in the Ag Committee. Obviously, and I chair the subcommittee on general farm commodities, we've done an awful lot in that committee. There's some other things too. There's been some conservation, there's been the nutrition title, and a few others, livestock and poultry and foreign ag and so on. But the biggest emphasis has been placed on these programs under my purview, which is in the general farm commodity subcommittee. So we've been very aggressive on that, and we'll continue to do that, because all this does is just sort of lay the groundwork for us to get it right next time around. So
we want to do our part with you. Do we have questions for the congressman while we've got him? Nathan?
First off, I want to thank you for being the leader on cotton issues in the House. Being my congressman, I know firsthand how hard you work for farmers in general, but especially cotton farmers. So thank you for that. Also, thank you for the leadership that you showed trying to get cottonseed designated as another oilseed, along with chairman of the committee, and pressuring at least as a stopgap to get us this cotton, the GN cost share program. It has been, as a personal recipient of it, it has been a very large help last year on a year that funds were very short. And especially this year, since we were cash strapped that year, that doesn't disappear from last year. So thank you for that. I guess for the long-term stability of the cotton program in the United States, I guess it's this policy of National Cotton Council for us to get cottonseed or cotton included as a Title I program in the Farm Bill. I mean, obviously that's our ultimate goal. What are your perspectives on this effort, and what suggestions do you have for us where we can be successful in convincing more colleagues to support this?
well, I think it will probably be, as I mentioned in my comments, what we have to, I think, prioritize is maintaining and keeping the Farm Bill closed, because if we open it up, we imperil virtually every program in the Farm Bill. So if we can't come up with something as a standalone initiative or through the appropriations process to tweak that, then what we would have to do is probably wait till the next Farm Bill to be able to really codify that, yes, this cotton oil seed is an approved participant in the PLC program. I don't think that's going to be a tough hill to climb in that environment. It is now, but marking up the next Farm Bill with that as a provision shouldn't even be controversial. So I think we're looking at the glass as half full. It's just a matter of now kind of treading water, using the Jennings cost share now as sort of a stopgap measure to get us to over the next 2 years. It's a gamble. I mean, are we willing to roll the dice on trying to fix this statutorily and risk opening the Farm Bill to all kinds of cuts? Or do we try to tweak it in the approps process? I think we would probably be better served if we can, year to year, to rely on approps for now, when we're going to go through 2 more before we see another Farm Bill, and then try to put that in as a, hey, we learned from this experience. Let's be very clear that that is an oil seed, a designated oil seed for the purposes of participation in the PLC. I think that's probably the more, or the less risky approach, for the sake of the Farm Bill. Yes, sir.
Mike?
Congressman, thank you for your comments today, and thank you also for the strong efforts you've made in pushing back against EPA and some of their costly and damaging regulations that are hurting U.S. growers, especially your work on the spill prevention rule regarding on-farm storage.
Yeah.
My question for you would be, what else can Congress and agricultural organizations do to help rein in an overly aggressive EPA that's drifting away from their mission of science-based regulation?
That's a good question. I think there are some things we can do legislatively, but we definitely need to have the kind of relationship with y'all where you are apprising us immediately when you see these kinds of things pop up. The reason I say that is because agencies, not just the EPA, but particularly the EPA, they're engaging in all kinds of rule promulgation beyond or outside of the purview of congressional oversight, and it's deliberate. The reason is because there's a budget crunch, and because we go in here and we go, let's cut the EPA's budget by 10%. And they go, all right, we'll go make some more rules and we'll generate revenue that's not subject to appropriation. That kind of empowers sort of a rogue kind of an idea, mentality among these federal agencies. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but the evidence shows that what they're doing is they have the authority to impose fees and fines on individuals. They do that, they collect that money, and it doesn't come back to the Fed, and it's not subject to appropriations. So what does that mean? That means agencies are just doing things at their own discretion without the kind of oversight they need. The first hint of that you see, we need to know about it, because there's a reason we don't. It's not because we got our head in the sand or we're, just not paying attention. It's because by design they don't want us to know. They haven't asked our opinion. They haven't asked for approval. So we definitely want to have the kind of relationship with our producers where they can contact us and make us aware of it immediately, whatever it is. But you mentioned the spill prevention and containment countermeasures. Passed that out of the House 5 times on a voice, 5 times. And 1 senator stopped it in the Senate every time, 1. That tells you what kind of stroke they have when they want to. That's pretty good to be a senator. I mean, we did this thing 5 times on voice. It's not controversial. The bill was crafted with language straight from the Clean Water Act. There's no reason in the world why there should be any hesitation to implement this. And University of Arkansas did this study. It saved Arkansas alone $25 million in compliance costs. That's Arkansas, $3.3 billion in savings and compliance costs across the country. That's $3.3 billion taken out of our economy. That ain't dust, people. That's a lot of money. That could be doing a heck of a lot more than compliance. That's one example. There's others. And we need to be diligent about this. But I would like to codify or legislate a solution that says all that money collected by any agency has to come back to the Fed and be subject to appropriations. That's our job, to engage in oversight of these federal agencies. And what we've done is basically empower bureaucrats to call the shots on their own. And we can't continue to operate, certainly in agriculture. But it's not just agriculture. Fish and Wildlife, OSHA, Department of the Interior, which is Fish and Wildlife is under. There are some others that do this and have authority to issue fees and fines, and they continue to keep those in their own coffers, and that makes it a problem for us when we're, so we're going to cut your budget 10%, and that's like, okay, go ahead. We'll make it up. That means they get more aggressive in levying those fees and fines. What also troubles me is I don't have to mention WOTUS here. I mean, y'all are pretty familiar with that, but huge, huge mistake, and fundamentally redefine the relationship you as a farmer have with the NRCS, which up to this point historically has been a very good agency and had a good relationship with farmers as a technical consult, even as a cost share agency on projects that are important to your farms. If WOTUS were to go through, and right now, no pun intended, we're treading water here, but if it were to go through, it will fundamentally alter your relationship with the USDA. Not just the NRCS, but USDA. Changes their charter, basically. That's not what we want either, And so hopefully, as it stands right now, a 4-4 ruling, the lower court stands. The lower court ruling stands under that scenario, but we don't know how long that's going to hold up. So it's important. And this regulatory thing is just killing everybody, not just ag, but it is particularly punitive to agriculture.
Anybody have another question real quick? Okay, I want to close it by, of course, officially thanking the congressman for his time. He has another appointment this afternoon. He was very generous to come over here. And as you know, you have people in the room that get to vote for you, call you a friend, and call you their congressman. But what you may not know is the rest of us don't get to vote for you, but we're glad to call you a friend and our congressman. So thank you for your time.
My privilege. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it.